Zeb, thanks for being here.
Sorry?
Appreciate your time. Thanks for travelling today.
Sorry, mate. 2 hours, by the way.
Oh, 2 hours. Well, okay. Thank you. Listen, I do appreciate the travel to be here.
Sorry, mate.
Also, you know, I have to think about you as a human, as a person. You've also just come out of rehab. How are you doing?
Yeah, I don't know if it's worth me mentioning before any of that, getting into any of that crap, telling your audience who I am. I don't know if they know. I don't know if the old people that listen to this watch, if they know who I am, but
I'm sure some people know who you are, but if you'd like to do your own introduction, you're welcome to.
I'll give it a go. My name's Zeb Purcell. I'll do it with this camera. My name's Zeb Purcell. I'm used to having cameras in my name's Zeb Purcell. I'm a free speech advocate, journalist, former TV star, actually, and now podcaster, which was a medium I was completely unaware of right before last year when I recorded the first series of my hit podcast, Fistful of Free Speech, which is on YouTube now. Yeah, I've completely unaware of podcasting. Never really heard it much. I know Joe Rogan did one, and that sort of stuff. I was never really into it. And then, and then I was approached, and I thought I'll have a go at that. And I've been doing that, and that's been pretty good, pretty successful. I had some good guests. We've got even better guests if we do a second series. I promise you that. So that's me. I'm sure we'll get into some of the stuff that's gone on in my past. But yeah, free speech advocate. Because what I say is, if the speech is free, the speech is good. You know what I mean? Yeah, you know what I mean, don't you?
I do, Zeb. And yet we are allowed on this podcast. I think that's the great thing about podcasting is you can have free speech, you can voice your opinions, you can share those.
You can do anything.
Absolutely.
There's podcasts about the most boring things in the world. Someone's done a 5-hour podcast about it. That's on every day on YouTube. They sometimes pop up at the side. YouTube's got a new algorithm, right? Where at the side it pops up with these little videos with like 3 views. I don't know what's going on. I think they're trying to make rubbish stuff more go higher. Whereas my stuff, which is brilliant, right, doesn't pop up on anyone's sides because I've been asking people. It doesn't pop up on the side. Do you know what I mean?
Do you feel like you're shadow banned already?
Probably.
Why would they? What the government? Why would they? If you're trying to advocate for free speech here, which I think is admirable, by the way.
Thank you.
Admirable.
Thank you.
Then, and YouTube gives you the opportunity to speak freely. But why would they want to ban you?
Run by liberals. As with most stuff in this world, unfortunately, it's completely run by liberals. Now, I'm not left or right, but I've got a problem with the extremes on either side. So the extreme liberals shadow banning my stuff, for example, very annoying. And that's the sort of stuff we need to cut off at the root. Do you know what I mean? In fact, not just cut off at the root, pull the roots out.
Seb, I do feel that you've come today and you do seem quite angry.
No, not at all.
Okay. You do seem quite you seem like an angry person today. And I'm just wondering what's behind that because you've just come out of rehab. And I think the first question I asked you really today was just about how are you doing? How are you feeling?
Yeah.
And you did kind of deliberately, I feel like, avoid that question. Yeah. So like let's get back to that. How are you doing? You've just come out of rehab. How are things?
I'm all right. No, I had a good time in rehab, actually, surprisingly. I didn't want to go. I'll be completely honest, I didn't want to go, but turns out when you sign a contract, right, you should always read it, right? I'm going to be completely honest, I didn't read it, right? I sent it to my management, they had a skim through, and yeah, fine. It said at the bottom something about if there's anything that blah 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 hurts the brand, blah blah, you have to take action, blah blah. So basically, I pretty much had to go to rehab, right? Because of my contract with Enjoy Productions, who do my podcast. So I agreed and I went, and do you know what? It's actually well all right. Very clean, very quiet. It was right out in the middle of nowhere, like this place. And it was very quiet. And a button on the wall. If I press the button, they bring food in whenever I want. Had a lot of time to sit around and think. I didn't have my phone. Only just got my phone back a few weeks ago. It's crazy stuff's been going on since I've been gone. Right?
So you're suggesting that rehab was more like being in a hotel?
Yeah. Yeah, one of those expensive, nice hotels, but maybe like a hotel in like a weird place like North Korea where they take your phones away and stuff. Because it was also very white walls, very quiet out the window, sort of like fields outside the window, with all like horses running around and that. And I wasn't allowed to leave. I guess that's a bit different from a normal hotel, isn't it?
Yeah. You weren't allowed to leave. But again, because I feel like you went in there because contractually, I mean, whether it was a contract or not, I don't know if you have to go. But I think the reality
I'd be pissed off if I didn't have to go because I was told I had to go.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. But I think you had bit of an issue with alcohol, I believe.
Yeah, well, that was the reason they put on the thing, but I don't know if I definitely have. Well, I definitely don't have a problem with alcohol now. I'm drinking tea now.
You are.
You know what I mean, Jesus. But yeah, I'm not. So I don't think I definitely had a problem with alcohol, but I definitely. That was what they said. And when I eventually got out, right, because to be honest, I got out by saying yes a lot, right? The bloke would come round, how you feeling today? Oh, yeah, great, mate. Yeah. What's the, oh, yeah, write all of that down. And then straight out the door, thank you very much. But yeah, it was all right. What was your question?
I was asking you about rehab and the experience of rehab. And do you feel like you found yourself now? Do you feel like you're back one? Because again, like I said, you are still quite angry, and I'm just wondering where that anger's coming from.
It's funny that because I don't exactly know what you're talking about. I think you got to remember, right? Working class lad, Maidstone, right? So I grew up in Maidstone, right? Working class lad, and I think a lot of us we portray our. I don't know. Maybe I don't have the words like you do, right? But you know, we this is how we are with people, right? I'm not angry right now, right? But perhaps that sort of natural confrontational energy, you know, rubbing up against sort of I don't know where you're from. Probably Surrey or something. Am I right?
No, I'm from here.
Here, right?
Yeah.
Whatever here is. That sort of thing. So, you know, like that sort of energy, maybe you don't quite understand that, but you know, where I'm from, that's a sort of like a very natural male energy to have, you know, sort of quite a naturally confrontational energy. So that's that. But in answer to your question about the about rehab, I think I learned a lot of techniques, right? So they said to me, Zeb, and I'm proper angry when I'm going to say angry, because as is well documented on my podcast, there was an unfortunate incident where I got very drunk and smashed a glass into my own head, right? That's very well documented on my show. And then the ambulance came and I had to have stitches. It's under the eyebrow, so it's gone now. But that wasn't great. But so if I get actually angry now, like I did then, got a big beanbag now. I just go in the other room and smack that around for a bit, and then then I feel fine.
But then just in that in itself, there is a level of anger, isn't there? Because you're trying to get the aggression, even if it's into a beanbag.
Yeah.
And, you know, while a beanbag is a lesser item to be punching, obviously prior to that, and this is what we were trying to get to, it was very public when you got drunk on your show, you smashed a glass into your own face, and then you were taken to hospital. So, I mean, that's obviously quite an extreme incident.
Yeah.
Do you reflect on that moment at all?
Only when it's sort of brought up by people like you in interviews, but no, I guess it's when I think about it, you know, it is of course a mad thing to do. You've got to remember, I was pissed out of my skull, number one, and second of all, I had just found out that my kid wasn't actually mine. So that was, of course, again, well documented on my show, Fistful of Free Speech on YouTube. Maybe skip episode 6 when I was caught wanking. But that sort of stuff is, of course, builds up, you know, and I mean, how would you react if you found out your kid wasn't? You know what I mean? Your kid wasn't yours. That was, of course, a big thing. I mean, technically, right, if we get lawyers involved, I don't know for sure the kid's not mine, right? Again, as I've talked about in my show, I'm going over old ground, but I took Rosie to a DNA test in South London Meds for You, right? Great place. And they did a DNA test on the baby when it was, like a month in the stomach? And they said, they're pretty sure it's not mine.
Pretty sure?
Yeah. They don't know. They said when it's that young, it's almost impossible to know. But I had a feeling, you know. So, yeah, I haven't seen it since.
Well, I think we need to think about that, right, and talk about it, because
I don't think we have to, but we can.
Look, it's probably something that is deep within you, which is possibly creating some of this anger issues that you have. I know you're defending yourself, and that's great. Look, I'm here to understand and help, and you know, I have empathy for your situation. I've been through challenging times as well. Now, when we think about that, I mean, what does that mean to you if that child isn't yours and you still don't have an answer for it?
Yeah.
Do you think is that within you? Do you feel like you need to find the answer?
I'll tell you what it means for me. It means I spent 3 days painting a bedroom duck egg colour blue, right, for a baby that isn't mine. That's one thing it means. Another thing it means is that I took Rosie back, right, because she's having my baby. That was a waste of time, if it turns out that wasn't the case. If it is mine, right, that might be a good thing. Maybe we can give it a go again. She's probably single now. Don't know. But she's probably going to stop doing the OnlyFans stuff. Because bit weird that, isn't it, with a kid?
Yes, possibly. What's the latest with Rosie? Where did that get to?
I haven't spoken to her in ages. She, when I found out, again, we can get into technicality of that, but when I'm going to say when I found out the kid wasn't mine, I didn't sling her out because it's her house. I left and went to a travel lodge for a bit, and I haven't spoken to her since. The baby is born. It's doing all right apparently. But I have almost little to no interest in seeing it until I know for a fact the little bugger's mine. Because otherwise, you've got to pay for that stuff.
Yes, you absolutely have to support your child.
If it's yours,
that's your responsibility.
If it's yours,
you've also used a few words here, which, if it's okay, I'd like to reflect on. You've used the word "it" a few times, and I'm not too sure if you're aware of the words that you're using, but this is a public forum, number one. So listen, I want you to be free speech and talk as you feel is right. I feel like, look, I don't want to be here to give you support or guidance, but I'm a father. I've got 2 children, and it's really important to me to know that I'm their father, and they live with me and I support them, and absolutely there is a financial implication to that. Like, is there any part of you that really wants to get to the answer, because you still feel like you're not sure whether the child is yours, what's going on with Rosie? There's a lot here. There's a lot here to unpack, don't you feel?
All right, I'm going to level with you, right?
Please.
When I found out that I was going to be a dad, super into it. Right, I was super into the whole idea. I was like, do you know what? Rosie and I, let's give it another proper go. Loved the idea. And then I had a weird sneaking suspicion something wasn't right. And since then, when I did the test, South London Meds for You, which, as I said, good organisation. When I went there to get the test done, sneaking suspicion something wasn't right. And then, ever since then, when I got the results that he wasn't mine, something weird, pretty shattered, to be honest. To be completely honest, I was pretty shattered. But there's only so much you can do. As I said, if we want 100% certainty, we have to wait till he's older. And I'm wondering if it's worth getting to know someone else's kid right now, is basically what I'm saying,
I'm not sure if I do, but let me try and clarify what you're saying. So you're suggesting that maybe you start building relationships with other children?
No. I'm saying if I went full into this, right, and move back in with Rosie if she wants that, I don't know. Get in touch, actually. We'll find out. Do I want to move back in with Rosie and then spend a few years looking after this kid to then find out it's not mine?
Okay.
For a certainty, 100%. Do I want to do that? Or is it easier to just go, do you know what? 1, 2, 3, not that interesting anyway. Give it some time.
Is this about finding the easiest route, or is it about doing the right thing? So you have a child that needs support, but whether
either
it's
I do or Darren does, who's got a massive head.
Okay. So you know Darren. What's your relationship with Darren? What's he doing about the situation?
I don't know Darren. I've only seen... Rosie does OnlyFans, right? I don't know how much you've looked into me. I'm guessing not very much. Rosie does OnlyFans, right? Rosie does OnlyFans with a guy called Darren. They were together before we got back. Rosie and I... Here's a history lesson, right? Rosie, if any of this is wrong, then I'll tell him to take it out. Me and Rosie were together when we was younger, right? She worked for the Halifax. I did. She says nothing. I was working on my craft, right? She, after a while, got annoyed with the fact, I think, that I was like literally doing nothing. But she says literally doing nothing. I was, as I said, building up to what would be a successful TV and newspaper career, and now podcast career. And so that was first time round. Then knocked it on the head. Cut to a few years later, she comes on my show. We rekindle something. Potentially, we then have this child, right? In the meantime, Rosie leaves the Halifax and starts doing OnlyFans, right? With a guy called Darren. But they're not together. They're just having sex. But they're not together. It's very modern, the OnlyFans stuff. Which I'm super into, because I'm super into women doing whatever they want, right? Some liberal values I'm pretty keen on. So Rosie's doing OnlyFans stuff, and then and then she and then we got back together, and then this kid was born, and I had a weird suspicion because I was looking at X-rays and the kid's head was a bit weird, like Darren's head is, and then so I had the thing done, and they said, yeah, it's probably not yours or something, I can't remember, and then that was when I got a suspicion. Does that answer your question? I can't remember what your question was.
It does. It does answer the question, but it raises a few more questions if you
Sure.
don't mind.
This is like first like being back in rehab.
Well, I feel like you've left rehab and maybe you don't have some of the answers. And I feel like most of those answers
That's what he said as well.
are probably within you, some of these answers. But sometimes I think the best thing to do is unpack what's happened.
Sure.
Because I'm not too sure if you're aware of some of the words you're using. Again, here is that Rosie was having a sexual relationship with Darren whilst you were in a relationship with her. And she was doing that with OnlyFans, so essentially publicly. Now, I know you're defining that as women can do whatever they like, which they absolutely can, of course. And it's great that you're pro that. But I wonder about the impact of her having a sex with another man whilst being in a relationship with you, also in public.
Yeah.
And I just wonder if that's the right kind of healthy relationship to bring up a child within. Do you see my point?
Yeah, well, that's why I knocked on the head. I haven't seen it in ages.
Right.
But the dating game is pretty rubbish. Yeah, I mean, I haven't. I had a brief, I guess, I don't know what you call it, affair. She was married, I think, with one of the nurses at the rehab. But otherwise, I haven't had a relationship since Rosie. Yeah.
You had a relationship with a person in rehab.
I don't know if you can call it a relationship. She's one of the nurses, and every so often she used to come in and we'd have sex, and then she'd go.
Right.
I guess that's a relationship, as good as any.
Well, I mean, it's probably something that crosses the line of what the relationship is allowed to be within rehab.
Yeah.
Certainly on her part, and certainly, I mean, morally, it's probably wrong on her part to have that kind of relationship.
I haven't really thought about it.
No, and this is where I think this is probably useful to try and unpack some of this stuff. How are you feeling right now?
Fine, yeah, good. Like I said, I had a great time at rehab. I'll be completely honest. Like, I think for the first time in ages, I just had a chance to sort of stop, because I lead a pretty hectic lifestyle. Stop, reassess, be a bit like, okay, what do I want right now? Right? Interesting. Let's have a look. Am I doing too much publicly? Probably. Am I doing too much for charity? Definitely doing too much for charity. So I've knocked that on the head. I've told my management I'm not doing any more charity stuff for ages because I do far too much and I get nothing. The only reason, right, this might be off topic, I can't remember what you said, but the only reason, right, that we had all that nonsense with the court stuff, all that court case that lasted for, I was almost a year, right, of my life, wasted, trying to find out an answer about that court case, was because I was doing a charity football match. Again, I've talked about it on my podcast, but charity football match against some kids, right? I happened to kick one ball, it hit one kid in the face and broke his nose, right? That's my fault, somehow, because it had malicious intent or intent of violence, something, right? I spend a year of my life waiting for that just to find out I did nothing wrong. What a waste of my time. So I've said no more charity stuff, right? Knock that on the head. I'm doing a special. I don't know when this is coming out, but I'm doing a special of my of a Fistful of Free Speech for comic relief. That's the last charity thing I'm doing. Knocking on it. And to be honest, only because the book's coming out, which we haven't mentioned once yet. But yeah, and I thought, what am I doing? What do I want? I want to calm things down and a bit of time for me, right? So that's what I'm doing. I'm starting to explore hobbies. I'm looking into what hobbies are, because I've never really had hobbies. Looking into what hobbies are, thinking about maybe doing some hobbies, back on Tinder, seeing if there's a lady out there who might be interested in Zeb Purcell. And otherwise, just sort of chilling out a bit, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's good that you're having some time for yourself. And I always talk about self-care on this podcast. And I think it's great that you are taking that time for yourself. You've kindly mentioned the book here, which we were coming to, like coming out of rehab, and now you're releasing this book.
Yeah.
One of the things we're talking about here, almost in the first line, you're talking about being abandoned by parents. A lot of the conversation today, do you feel like it goes back to your relationship with your parents?
Yeah, this is definitely like being back in rehab. Yes, except the bloke was a lot more German. It was a German bloke who was my, was he psychiatrist? I don't know. He kept coming in the room. Him. Right, again, for your audience, maybe you don't know. It's all in the book, by the way, any of this. If you want to buy the book. It's pre-order only now. It's not actually out yet, pre-order. It's not in the book, but when I was 8 years old, on New Year's Eve, 1999, my parents left me with my grandparents to go and join a cult, both of them. They said it's not a cult. It is a cult. It is a cult. It's well known to be a cult. Didn't speak to my parents... didn't speak to my parents since then. Last year, my mum got back in touch with me through the podcast. However, I later found out that was either my mum or it was someone pretending to be my mum to try and scam money from me. I don't know. Either way, I either did or didn't get back in contact with my mum last year, and as far as I'm aware, my dad is dead. Now, in answer to your question about has that had an impact on me, I think, of course, it had an impact on anyone, right? But all I think it really did was made me stronger, more resilient, and a better person. Morally, ethically. Yeah, those two things.
Morally and ethically,
Yeah.
it's made you a better person.
I like threes, but I couldn't think of a third one.
Yeah. I can understand here. I mean, look, I've got some words here: cancelled, unemployed, spiraling. They were the three words that's kind of been highlighted on this book. Do you feel like those are the right words?
It's a bit hyperbole, isn't it, to sell the book? But yeah, that sort of thing. There was I mean, I was. Okay, if we take it back to like earlier 2024, right? Second series of my show, Purcell Per Se, on Channel 5 was out, right? I was writing for The Sun, right? I was pretty much on top of the world. You can't get much higher than Channel 5, right? Sorry. Sorry, that's pretty stupid. Sorry, I was doing so well. Sorry. Should I just go do the same thing again?
Let's keep going.
Okay. I was pretty much on top of the world. You can't get much higher than Channel 5, right? And so I and then of course we had the incident with the football, and I was plummeted to the, no offence, level of a lowly podcaster, right? The only people that would touch me were Enjoy Productions when they offered me a Fistful of Free Speech. I had literally no other work coming in, right? And so for me, I had to do it. I had to do something. And then it pretty much went down further and further downhill until the episode with the glass, as mentioned. So yeah, maybe spiraling is the right word. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a great time.
I'm going to read you a quote here from Piers Morgan.
Yeah.
And he feels that the autobiography is gripping, unapologetic, shares about your highs, your lows. He also says that you're a man that doesn't hold back.
Yeah.
And he also says, though, he doesn't always agree with your choices. And I feel like I think about your parents. I think about everything that happened with Rosie. I think about OnlyFans with her. I think about...
Don't think about it too much.
I haven't watched it. I think about your child.
Said that too quickly.
Maybe your child, not your child. I feel like there's a young person here. I have to question some of your choices, some of your decisions. But I'm also trying to appeal to you as a potential father, as a potential husband, that you've got a chance of taking...
Not his potential husband, to be clear, just in general.
I think you've got a chance of taking the higher ground here. Do you think that's within you?
I'm not very good with metaphor. What do you mean take the higher ground? I mean, literally.
As in, you could become a better man.
Oh, right. Than I am now.
I believe there is...
Difficult.
I believe this podcast is all about growth. It's all about, intellectual growth, personal development, us growing as human beings. And I feel like there's a chance for you. There's a chance for you to really take some growth and solitude in everything that's happened and rise above everything. Do you feel like there's a chance for that? Can you?
I think I'm already doing it.
Right.
That's the thing. I think I'm already doing it. I think getting that book done was a lot of getting that off my chest, right? And I think in a way, like I said, rehab was long and boring, but I'm not being funny. I have had these conversations before, and I think I've come out of it knowing who I am a lot more than when I went in.
Right. And who is that man? Who are you?
Zeb Purcell, broadcaster, thinker, thinker of modern times, a modern day thinker.
They're all things. So your name is your
Yes.
name,
Yeah.
right? But and that's kind of surface level. But I
Okay.
just wonder about, when you go on a personal development journey,
Right.
you think about values. Like, what are those values that you hold dear to you? Those ethics that you have, the integrity that you have, the non-negotiables you have of yourself. That's what really personal development's all about. It's more than just having a name. What does that name mean? What does it stand for?
It wasn't my original name. Did you know that? Did they tell you that?
No, I didn't. I
I was born River. It was called River for 2 years. River Bluebell. And then Sorry. Okay. Shall I go again?
It's so hard not laughing at some of your answers. It's
Thank
almost
you.
impossible.
It's actually fun doing. I've never done this long before. Like, you know.
I have no fucking clue how to edit this. I might just leave this bit in. Fuck
Okay.
it.
Right, Zeb.
Yeah.
As far as I'm aware, you.
Well, I was telling you something actually. So I was actually born River Bluebell, until my mum realised the name was, of course, ridiculous. When she got back with my dad when I was 2, they changed it to Zebedee because they loved the Magic Roundabout. That's true. That's true. Yeah, you laugh what you want. That is true. People, I'm not. It's fine to laugh. Everyone has the same reaction. But yeah, people. My dad absolutely loved the Magic Roundabout. Yeah.
Right.
He had a tattoo of one of them. I don't know. I haven't seen it.
Well, listen, I apologise. I'm sorry to laugh. I certainly didn't. I've never known anyone be called after the Magic Roundabout before.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry about that.
That's fine. My parents were nut jobs. That's one of the least weird things I've ever done.
Right.
Yeah. Very strange people.
Right. You said that your dad might have passed away. When was the last time you were in contact with him?
I heard it. The problem is I've heard it's a rumour.
Right.
And when I spoke to my mum,
Right.
I don't know if it was her. That's what the quotation marks for people just listening via audio. When I spoke to my mum, again, quotation marks, she did confirm that my dad had passed away, but I don't know if that was actually her, if it was a scammer using like an AI voice thing. That's the problem. Because I sent her money, right? You know.
Right. So you sent someone money.
Who I thought was my mum. It might have been my mum, but I don't know. That's the problem. I haven't spoken to her since. She blocked the number.
Right. Hang on. So let's break this down again. Yeah. So you sent. How did they contact you?
So I was talking on my podcast about my family, and my mum, again, quotation marks for listeners, reached out to the podcast and said, "I'm Luna. I'm Zeb's mum." I don't know what her voice is like. I don't remember. You know, I was 8 last time I spoke to her. And so they did some checks and they said it seems fairly legit based on where she might be, blah, blah, blah. And so they put us in contact. We had a chat. We had a few chats over a number of weeks. She needed money. And so I sent her some money by check or something ridiculous because, you know, bank account, something weird was going on. And then she was going to come on my podcast and I was going to have a proper chat and like get to the meat of, you know, what was going on. And she didn't show. So,
right.
So I don't know if that was her. And she did confirm that my dad had passed away, but I don't know that. I heard it from Bald Allen at the pub in Maidstone when I went back to Maidstone. I heard he just said, "Oh, your dad's dead now." This was about 5 years ago. But again, Bald Allen's not reliable. He took shit half the time.
So the last time you knew about them, you were 8. And
they left me when I was 8.
And they went to a cult.
Yeah, they claim it's not a cult, but it is a cult.
Right. What do you have any more details?
The cult's called Celestial Dawn.
Right.
Sounds like a cult, doesn't it? And my mum, it's all in the book. A period of time, my mum was going to the Celestial Dawn cult every month, once a month, right? And she'd go and she would go to this thing and she'd come back over the weekend. She'd come back and she'd be like super happy now. And then after a while, my dad started going as well. So I went to my grandparents and it carried on and on. And after a while, they just left me. They were supposed to come and pick me up on New Year's Eve and they didn't. And I left with my grandparents. So I lived with them ever since.
Right. Okay.
Well, I don't still live with them now until I was an adult.
Of course, yeah. So essentially, your grandparents raised you.
Yeah, from years of 8 onwards. Yeah,
okay.
Till like 17 or whatever when I left and moved to London. Yeah.
Right. Okay. I think I'm not a psychologist here.
No, you're acting like it.
Right. I'm certainly not intending to be in any way, but I do get the opportunity to speak to a lot of people on this podcast, and they've had past trauma, which has been untreated.
Probably not with the same profile, but
not to the same level or profile of you as you know, with your programs. And certainly, I've never spoke to anyone who's been cancelled before, so this is a first for me. I feel like you have a void with your parents, and I'm just wondering that is there an opportunity here for you to reconcile, because there's a really high chance here that your dad is still alive. Have you ever considered that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, how would I do that? How would I find him? Like obviously when I was growing up, I made a concerted effort to try and find my mum and dad. For a long time, I thought I had found my mum in 2010 or something, when I bumped into someone on the street that looked almost exactly like me but older, and a woman. And I thought it was my mum, and I followed her and spoke to her, and she had no idea what I was talking about, but I thought she was lying. And so I tried to track her down and I couldn't find her. So for a long time, I thought that was my mum. And then I have no idea now because the woman who phoned me didn't sound anything like her. So, I don't know. How do I find them? How do I find these people? I guess I could hire a private investigator. Maybe.
I don't know. But maybe there's an opportunity there for you to understand more about your past, right? And then maybe that would give you an opportunity to understand the past and be able to think about your future and what do you really want from your future. I mean, have you spent some time going from when you were in rehab, you had a lot of time, a lot of white walls, horses. Did you have a chance to really think about like what sort of man you're going to be into the future? What sort of future do you need? What sort of future do you want?
You're going to say this is not the right sort of answer, but I want to be back on Channel 5, preferably, with a third series of Purcell per se, my talk show. But otherwise, non-career-wise, which I think is what you're angling at, I would like to settle down. The problem is, right, things keep happening, which are not my fault, which are stopping those things from happening. So, pretty settled with Rosie. I was pretty settled with Rosie, and then bam, Darren. OnlyFans. And I was fine with the OnlyFans because she was into it before I got back with her. But, baby, not mine. That's problematic. Tasha. I was with Tasha for a whole year, right? One of the most beautiful women I've ever seen. Amazing woman, right? Every time she got annoyed at me, she threw saucepans, right? And there's only so many saucepans to the head you can take, Simon. Do you know what I mean? So that didn't work out.
So you were in an abusive relationship with Tasha.
Well, she claims right that she only threw saucepans at me because I was flirting with girls on Instagram. Right, I wasn't flirting with girls on Instagram. I'm talking to lots of people all the time because of my job. Right, I'm sure you're the same. And so some people on Instagram I was talking to. Right, but you know what? I'm a chatty guy. I like talking. If someone reaches out, I talk to them.
Of course. I mean, but there's a difference between talking, flirting, sending. A communication to someone which might be, beyond work, let's just say. So there's different ways of communicating with people. So why did she have a concern about the way you're communicating with people?
She got my hold of my phone once and she unlocked it by holding my face up when I was sleeping, which is really annoying. And she was looking through and just by chance, I happened that day to be speaking to a few different lingerie models, right? Because I've said this before, because I was looking to book for the podcast a lingerie model or similar of whatever gender, it just happened to be women when I was talking to them, to talk on the podcast about what it might be like to do that, right? And so she found that, and then she blew up again. And then, there's the frying pan, same old stuff, there's the saucepan, So,
can you see it from her perspective, though, that you are reaching out to very beautiful lingerie models? Like, why do you feel like you wanted to have them on the podcast? Is the story that interesting?
You never know unless you try. So I just thought it might be also, the show loves that sort of stuff. They only booked Rosie. They didn't even know we was together when they booked Rosie. When they booked her to be on the show, they didn't even know we'd been together for a year. Right? They just wanted someone who was a bit interesting because she's one of the top 1% earners or something. She responded to the call out. Little did I know it was all a hit piece against me, as usual. But no, the show loves that sort of stuff. They want people on who are like interesting or like weird in some way. It's why we've had the freaks we had in the first season. So I thought they'd be up for it. I don't know. It wasn't just that though. Tasha's like, Tasha, it's a very strange relationship, right? Because we was very, we was either very, very into each other or very, very opposite. I think we're opposites, really. That's the problem. I don't know. We'll see. I could see me getting back with any of them, to be honest.
Right. Okay. Is there a chance here that there's an opportunity for you to have a clean break? Like, you've come out of rehab, right? Maybe there's an opportunity for you to get back on Channel 5, although you have...
Do you have any contacts?
I don't.
Okay.
Although I have noted here that you have spoken down about Channel 5 as well. So you know, you so maybe you need to really think about your life, don't you? In some respects, what do you want? Where are you going? What's your direction? What's your values? Like, this is where you start with personal development. And like, I think there's a chance here. I just think I always look at the future with optimism and with some hope that, you know, you can find a path that's gonna work out for you, whether it's professionally or in your personal life. But maybe there's a chance for you here somewhere. Like, do you think you could use this as a fresh slate and go and build a brand new future?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think I am. Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe I haven't moved. Maybe what you're getting at is I haven't moved far away enough from the original Zeb Purcell to this new Zeb Purcell, right? Maybe they're quite similar. Is maybe what you're getting at. But maybe a lot of maybe what you're not noticing is that a lot of the internal stuff has changed, right? So maybe on the exterior, maybe I present as the same old Zeb Purcell, right? Which is good, a good thing, I think, because he's a good bloke. But maybe perhaps a lot of internal things have changed. Okay. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I mean, what can you share? What those sort of things are?
Well, I guess, for example, so I've been out of rehab for a few weeks, and I'm gonna be honest, I pretty much went straight back on Tinder, right? Because like I said, there was one woman that I was sleeping with while I was away, and I had to knock it on the head in the end because she was a bit weird. So I went pretty much straight back on Tinder, and what I used to do was pretty much just not even read the stuff, just scroll through the pictures. No. But now I've actually started reading the information below. So that's quite a big change for me.
That is a change. That is a change. I'm wondering whether even Tinder's the right approach.
Yeah. Again, you're sounding like the bloke from the Rehab, but yeah, he said that as well. But like I said, in a German accent.
Yeah. Okay. What do you hope for in your future? I mean, you've got this book. What are you hoping for to come from this book? Because sometimes when you bare all, you share your story, you share your vulnerabilities. That is often very well liked by people because they want to say, okay, this is a strong person. They're sharing their vulnerabilities. What was the reason behind the book?
Well, the book, I was approached by the publisher for the book when I was still on Channel 5, presumably because I was on TV and they thought it would sell all right for Christmas and that. And then I started writing it, and then I had a bit of time off with the old football incident, which again wasn't my fault. And then I got back into it a bit during rehab because I had fuck all else to do. So I spent quite a lot of time writing down some stuff. And of course, I'd done new stuff, right? I was in rehab now, so I could write all that stuff down. So that's all in there as well. I mean, if I can just... Please. I can read you a bit of the... Just because I don't know if... this is what they wrote up for the bio, right? I think it's pretty good. It's called www.worldwidezeb, by the way, which is my title. They didn't want to call it that because they said it was confusing. But I think it's all right. Cancelled but never silenced. Zeb Purcell speaks his truth. Zeb Purcell was never meant to make it. By the way, I did the audiobook as well. Abandoned by his parents on the eve of the millennium, which we've spoken about, Zebs seemed destined for a life of mediocrity. But mediocrity isn't Zeb's style. He worked his fingers to the bone, and by 2024, he had it all. A career at The Sun, his own Channel 5 show, and a reputation for saying whatever was on his mind. Yeah. Then came the incident. A broken nose, a police investigation, and a very public downfall. Cancelled, unemployed and spiralling, which you already picked up on, Zeb found himself at rock bottom until he did what he does best. He started talking. www.worldwidezeb is a story of a man who lost everything, tried to get it back, and learned absolutely nothing along the way. I didn't like that, but they added that in. Full of showbiz secrets, outrageous tales, and moments he'd rather forget. This is the book Zeb Purcell probably shouldn't have written, but one you absolutely need to read. So that's the bio, if that's of any use. So that, basically, is part one of Zeb's story. So that is sort of years -1 when my parents were sort of getting together, having me, up until pretty much right now. And so who knows, another 30 years, or maybe less, because I think you do them more quickly after that. Maybe another one will come out and there'll be the second chapter. And maybe a lot of things you've said will be incorporated into it. Maybe I will be a different person. Maybe this has changed me more than I think it has right now.
I feel like there's so much to reflect on, don't you?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. There's so much that's gone on in your life. There's so much to reflect on, to think about.
It's in the book.
Yeah. So I think, we've discussed a lot of that book, and I'm sure people will be very interested in taking a good read of the book. And I feel like this is just the first part of your story. I feel like you're going to go on and write many more books, probably about yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think maybe you move into a more reflective time. As you get older, you get into more reflective. You think about all the things that have happened and the reasons they happened, etc. And I'm just wondering, what's in the next chapters for you? I wonder where you're going. I'm so excited about your journey.
Was that a question?
It's a reflective point. Just wondering, what are you thinking?
Right now?
Right now.
Lights are a bit bright. But other than that, I don't know. I don't know. I think, like, listen, I'm maybe not as wordy as you and not as sort of, into all this sort of, reflection, blah, blah, blah. I'm a simple bloke, right? And I know what I want. I know what I like. I know what I want, right? And right now, I want some time to chill, and I want to get back in it, back on the saddle. Not literally. I don't like horses. Back on the saddle, metaphorically, metaphor, and get back to work. Now, what does that work entail right now? Mate, I don't know, right? It might be another TV show. They're badgering me for a second series of the podcast. I don't know if I want to do a second series. As you know, podcasts are like difficult to do. And it takes a lot of time and blah, blah, blah. Maybe a second series of the podcast. I'm doing a special, as I've said, comic relief. It might be out by now. And, maybe it's that. Maybe it's a Channel 5 show. I don't know. Maybe it's a movie idea. I've been working on a movie for a few years, but it's sitting at Sky. It's sitting at Sky. They still haven't made a decision yet, which is annoying.
Can you share anything about the movie idea?
I can tell you a small amount, but they've got it. There's something that says I'm not allowed to talk about it too much. But basically, it's a detective, possibly played by me. That's the plan. Although I'm not much of an actor, but fuck it, there's loads of actors who can't act in there. Who goes in. So when there's any issue or confrontation, his hands turn into guns. So it's sort of like an action thriller romance. Lots of romance probably. Yeah, it's that sort of stuff. Something. Back to the basics. Because TV now is too all over the place. It's too confusing. It's often boring or like super left wing. I just want to make something that's like back to basics. It's James Bond before Bond went all weird.
So the new movie is going to be similar to a James Bond film?
Yeah, but like I said, before
adventure.
Bond went all weird, yeah.
Went weird.
Went all like cried all the time and stuff.
Right. I don't recall him crying. I mean, I always remember him, being James Bond, which is, quite an incredible character. He's saving the world quite often. And in a lot of action and adventure. I don't remember.
Yeah, the more recent ones where he was hanging out with Helen Mirren, crying a lot.
Right.
And then that last one when he died, and he's probably coming back now because Amazon's just bought it, hasn't it? That sort of stuff. That's not Bond to me, right? Bond to me is like, Roger Moore. Like it's that sort of thing, action, women, danger, that sort of stuff, But like I said, women doing it because they want to, because I'm super into that.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a bit like a classic.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So when you say back to basics, you mean it's a classic action film?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Without all of that left wing stuff in it. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And you're the star?
Well, that's why it's being held up, right? Because Sky really liked the idea, but they wanted to get an actor in, right? And I don't like the idea of that. Because I think it could be a good thing for me to do, right? Because, I'm not being funny. I've got the looks. It won't take me long to get the physique back. It's not hard to get ripped, is it? And, well known for having, and I don't want to bring this podcast down, a high sex appeal to women, right? And that is the sort of thing that we need now. We need that hero back. And I think that hero looks and sounds like me. That's the other thing, not a posh one that talks like me,
There are elements to your voice where you do speak well. There are
Thank you.
points to that. But you're suggesting that maybe it's better not to speak as poshly or as well spoken as you are.
Yeah, I guess so. Maybe like I don't know. I think we need a working class Bond again, and I think that's a sort of role I could inhabit, like that.
It makes me think of a really inspirational story with Sylvester Stallone in Rocky. You know, do you feel there are some comparables between yourself and Rocky?
Yeah.
He wasn't destined to play that role, but he held out, he turned down the money, and he was able to get the role himself, obviously with the speech impediment, and that kind of made the character.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, but I inherently feel like yes is the answer.
Right, although you haven't seen it.
No.
Okay.
I've seen the bit where he runs up the steps, and that sort of thing is pretty cool.
Will you be running up any steps?
I guess we'll see what says in the contract.
Wait.
I think the good thing about some of these modern movies is that a lot of that you can just do it with someone else in the back of the head. I'll just do all the sort of close-ups and the kissing and stuff, and someone else can do all that sort of stuff.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an interesting view.
Yeah, we'll tell Sky because they've been sitting on it for 2 years.
Right. So they not come back to you?
No. I've every few months or whatever, I ask my agent, my management, and they, how's Sky been on the phone? Nope. It's been passed around, been kicked around like a football in the office, apparently, going to some other head of something. And by the time it gets high up enough, that person quits or leaves. This is the problem with the arts, isn't it? And then it just falls right back down to the bottom again. So, yeah, it's stuck in development hell, I guess. But we'll get it. I reckon we'll get it over the line at some point.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, I really wish you well with that
Cheers, mate.
project.
Have a cameo if you want.
Really?
Yeah, if you want. Extra, like an extra, not like an actual speaking role. Jesus.
Well, I mean, I'm not an actor.
No, neither am I.
But what, we can do acting roles, even though we're not actors?
Yeah, we can do anything we want, mate. I thought you're all about doing whatever you want and stuff, aren't you?
Well, I'm, within reason. I mean, that would be quite out of the sphere of what I know about. But if you feel like,
do you know what you bring up is actually an interesting point, because a lot of people ask me, like, why did you get into what you get into, right? Because think about it, right? Working class lad, right? Pretty much no, all intents and purposes, no parents, right? For a long period of my time. I didn't do any of my GCSEs. I didn't do well on my GCSEs and stuff. I don't even think I did half my GCSEs. Do you know what I mean? I remember getting, I think I got maybe like a C in something, art or something, maybe a C in maths. I can't remember. But like I did some version of GCSEs. I don't even think I bothered picking up the certificates, right? Then I pretty much went straight into work. I worked in a car wash for a few years in London, right? And then, I started to build up a little following because people were interested in things I had to say, right? And so then, I started writing for various little, because I've always liked writing. I've liked, one thing I do remember doing well in was English lit. And so I started writing a lot. And then after a while, I was writing for all these different publications, just little columns here and there, little pieces. After a while, offer for the Sun, right? Now I had to work with someone who did all the grammar and stuff, but I'm good at that now. At the time, I wasn't very good. And so, people ask me, like, how did that happen? And to be honest, mixture of luck and believing in yourself. And I guess if there's one thing people can't criticise me for, it's for wanting something and working working pretty hard towards it. And I get that's somewhat the ethos I've lived my life by.
Working just pretty hard towards it.
Yeah, like knowing roughly what you want and then working sort of in that direction, but don't get too stuck in it because, otherwise you end up sort of like, obsessing over it and stuff. And that's boring. You don't have time for things like, relationships and, working on yourself and all that sort of stuff that you've mentioned that I've had to do now because of the therapy. Yeah, that sort of stuff.
It's been a really interesting, enlightening conversation with you today, Zeb. Do you think there's anything that we haven't covered today that you would like to share?
Did we mention about pre-ordering the book?
You can certainly feel free
You can pre-order the book. The link in the description or whatever. Yeah.
One thing I didn't mention about the book was that there's a mention here by Katie Hopkins, who's obviously an interesting person to have referencing on your book. Why did you feel that was a good idea?
I think she's writing a book at the same time, and the publisher just got her on it. I think it's pretty much well known that I pretty much despise Katie Hopkins, but yeah, it's on the. It's funny actually because my podcast, Fistful of Free Speech, right, which is available. Talking a plug, a Fistful of Free Speech. Zeb Purcell, available on YouTube, the first series. That's good. Watch that. TikTok @Zeb Purcell. Follow that. I think the publisher pretty much reached out to her because she's another person of interest or controversial, whatever you want to call it. But I think it's pretty public that I pretty much despise her because me and her were both in line for my podcast. One of us was going to have a Fistful of Free Speech with one of us, and I managed to tip her over the edge. She started sending nasty messages to my management. So I don't know if she knows that I know that, But of course, they would have passed it on. But yeah, she did do a. What did she say? I can't remember. Something about.
Well,
I was good.
She hasn't said you're good.
Right.
She said you're controversial.
Well, she can talk. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So I wonder here that she's called you a controversial commentator. Now, quite often, what happens is, I mean, here, look, here's the sort of things she's talking about. It would be a desperate world to shut you down. So she wants you to be talking and making these controversial points, maybe because it supports her and her views in some respects. So I feel like she's
no, I take issue with that. I don't support her and her views. A common misconception about me is that I'm right wing, right? Because but here's the truth, right? I'm like a proper original centrist, right? Before all these new centrists like Keir Starmer and that, like a proper original centrist in which I like to pick from both sides, right? So there's some stuff that I really like on, right-wing stuff. There's some stuff I'll go, that's good, that's a good idea, we'll have that. Then on the left wing, there's less, but there's like some stuff I'm like, oh, that's a good idea, we'll have that, right? But the problem with Katie Hopkins is she's gone uber right wing. She's gone Tommy Robinson right wing, which also he's all right. He's a nice bloke. He did me a quote, but like he's gone super right wing, and I've gone to great lengths to say that I'm not that, right? I'm a modern day centrist,
Well, I mean, she says here, he doesn't give a damn, and for that, I respect him.
And you know what? Right back at her. And while I don't always agree with what she says, I applaud her right to say it as a British citizen.
I mean, again, free speech. You're in your own right to share whatever you feel. And today I feel like you shared a lot of your opinions, and it's really given us a chance to get to know you as a human, as a character, and understand about your past. I really do hope you seek further therapy. Is probably my wish for you.
I don't have to, though. It's done now. The contract's done.
Yeah, I mean, outside of that, as a human to a human, and potentially a father to a father, I feel like maybe if you could go to therapy, maybe just as a piece of self-care, just to have some conversations.
Cost, isn't it?
There is cost, right? But within that, I feel like you might get a deeper understanding of you and your purpose, and also your relationship with your potential child.
Yeah, I'll give it a think. I mean, I'll be completely honest. There's not a lot of money coming in at the moment, but I'll give it a think. Yeah, I'll give it. Do you know what? I'll take that and I'll give it a think. I'll think about it.
Okay, good. Well, thank you so much for coming in today. It's been a real joy and interesting conversation that we've had today.
Thank you. I agree. Cheers. Nice to meet you, mate.